All right, welcome everybody to the November Académie Lafayette Board of Directors meeting. I know we had one small change to the agenda that I'm aware of. I think we want to move up the discussion for our charter sponsorship to make sure we have time for that discussion. So I think we just need, were there any other changes to the agenda recommended?
No.
Okay. So I think we need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Yeah, we just moved the governance committee, the discussion up.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep. So moved to approve the agenda as amended. This is John Otto.
Second, Harriet.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. All right, hopefully everybody had a chance to review the minutes that Carlos sent out. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from our last board meeting?
So moved, Michelle.
Second.
It, Kelly.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Do we have any speakers tonight? I didn't notice anybody on. I don't believe we do. So I think we can move on. I believe first on the agenda is PTO.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, so basically you see on here the Boo Bayou and the dances, they were a success. The high school, they really enjoyed being incorporated. And we're going further, we're gonna get them again a booster club, so then it will run a little smoother, or smoother. We have a couple of events coming up. We have the restaurant night, November 10th at the Combine on 30th Street in Troost. It's right catty corner from Ruby Jeans, and that will be an all-day event, although we don't have school that day, so that makes it even better. So then people can get out at lunchtime and things like that. The holiday mart is November 20th, and everybody's getting that going. And then, okay, and then we have an upcoming PTO meeting. It was scheduled for November 16th, but we pushed it back till December 7th. So then we can get things talked about for the events that we were prior of done, like for November events, basically. And then just get a push for the December, teacher gifts and things like that. Thankful Thursdays, November 18th, Kelly Gar is excellent with that. We're going to be doing the same type of thing, just thanking our teachers and staff. And then we have the holiday parties coming up that we kind of intertwine with the room parents, and just making sure that we get the teachers and everybody, make sure the parties are together and make sure that we get those holiday gifts out there for the staff. So those are some of the things that we have coming up in basically the next couple of weeks. And then we have another board meeting coming up. I have to go back and look, actually just a quick board meeting just to go over what we're going to be doing for the spring. So basically it was good. Everything is going good. We got our spirit wear is doing pretty good. We got the trash bags taken care of. And, we have a couple people trickling in with that, but everything is kind of starting off this year on a positive note. So again, I like to say every time I have the best board. they're the greatest. So I always want to give them a shout out because they are they're great. So I'm very involved. So. But that's all that we have right now. But does anybody have any questions or anything?
No questions. I was just impressed. I know Boo Bayou this year, you had to do in 2 separate locations because of COVID. And so just what it took to make that happen and the middle school dance sort of all in such short amount of time. It sounds like they all went really well. I know my kids had a blast. So congratulations on
They did. Yeah. I'm always about giving shout outs. We got great volunteers, not just volunteers, but the board and volunteers and getting people wrangled up. We have a good committee to do that right now, because everybody has the same thing in mind. They want to make sure, just in case anything happens, we want to make sure we start off running, just in case we got to stop for a second and then pick it back up. So at least you start off the school year with things just coming out of the gates. So at least we can, we can say that we tried and got things going for at least the first semester, because you never know, but everybody's appreciative, everybody's helping. We have, the school helped with getting everything going, opening the doors for us, buying us a couple things that we maybe didn't even think about or we couldn't find, but just made sure everything ran smoothly. So again, I'm appreciative to that also. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all of your work and for all of your board and volunteers work.
All right, thanks.
All right, next up, Governance Committee, Michelle.
Yeah, and so there's really just one topic to talk about, which is the sponsors. And if you'll remember from last month, we had our presentation, we had our special board meeting where we had the presentations from the 3 sponsors. I know not everyone was able to attend, but I'm hoping everybody had a chance to listen to those and kind of bring we want to bring questions and discussion forward today. So if any of the board members did not see those or did not receive those or couldn't access those, just, shoot a quick note to me in the chat or something, and we'll make sure we get them to you, but everybody should have access to them. So I think what we want to do is, Mr. Bang, if you can kind of share and talk about the support that we've had from UCM. It will kind of help set that baseline. I know that every board member understands everything that we had and have now and take advantage from UCM. So maybe setting that baseline, and then I think we can move that into kind of opening the floor and talking about what we heard from the 3 as they presented. And then ideally what we want to do is have a start. I know both Mr. Bang and I have kind of starting to work on what is the criteria for the evaluation. And so if we can walk out of this meeting with that kind of set, then that gives everybody a chance to work on seeing how the presentations fulfilled the criteria so that we're all ready for the vote at the December meeting. So let us know if you have any questions, but I think if we can start, Mr. Bang, talking about what we've experienced and what we get from UCM.
Well, thank you. I would also invite Jacky to complete if you have anything else to add to that, because Jacky has been working with UCM since the beginning of the school. So UCM is our sponsor that opened the school with us. I can see 3 levels of support mainly. The first one is oversight, the institutional oversight. As a charter sponsor, they will be looking at all aspects of our school, looking at the building safety, personnel file, how we're doing that, the audit, financial audit, they look into that, our training, and there's also a review of our curriculum. Every year we sit down with one of their consultants to go over our curriculum, how do we do the curriculum, revise it, and share the curriculum. All the aspects of student achievement, they go over our test scores, the MAP test score, the NW test scores, and they produce an oversight report to the board. So the oversight is pretty comprehensive, with all aspects. So they work also, another aspect of the oversight is the board itself. They see how the governance is working. So the second part is educational partnership. For that part, they have been extremely helpful from the meetings we have on a monthly basis with all the charter school, where they share with us information, what's going on, opportunity for professional development, information about DESI, about anything going in the world of education. We have a meeting on a monthly basis, but also they coordinated training or network of our teachers in mathematics, teaching mathematics. They have somebody who deals with that, a specialist. They have one for English language art. They have training for dyslexia and other training, you name it. And also they, sometimes they pay for a couple of people attending professional development, like the National Charter School Association contribution and different other contributions they paid for. And not only that, but whenever we needed them, we can call on them and ask for advice. How do we do this and that? You know, for our high school, I called on Dr. Thaman many times to come here and help see how we do things, what you need to watch for. So, also the data, we have Bruce who works for UCM and help with our data in general and present it to the board, and it's paid by UCM. So, and the third part is mainly about our being a international school needing international teachers. Because of the sponsorship, we are exempt from the H-1B cap. To explain how it works is the US government every year set a cap for the number of H-1B visas to award to nationwide. So we're talking about the last time, I don't know exactly how many it is now, but the last time I know was like 65,000 visas nationwide to be distributed to companies like Google, Microsoft, small schools, and Intel, and so on. And what happened generally is and you cannot apply before April 1st. April 1st was the time they opened it. Okay, if you have a teacher, you wanna file for in October, you can do it, or any other time. So the problem with April 1st is, on April 1st, they only have 65,000 visas, a set of cap, and they will receive 250,000 applications because everybody wants to make sure that they apply for the teacher the first day. So because they have 250,000 and 65,000 visas, the only way immigration can allocate those visas is by lottery. Good people, and whoever you have a lot, you can have one teacher out of 3 who got the H-1B visas. Think about if you have a teacher on J1 or any type of visa that you want to transform into an H-1B, that's the problem. So it created some instability, cannot keep your teachers longer than maybe 3 years, and now J1 5 years. And knowing that for a school like ours, our teachers started really to be, to understand it, to be very effective after 2 years and the third years, and you're losing them. So because of our affiliation with an institution of higher education like UCM, institution of higher education, they have an exemption from the cap. They don't have that cap. So which means that we do not have a cap, and we were able to hire teachers from all over the world. In fact, our last teacher is arriving next week on H-1B visa from Mali. So that's something that is extremely valuable for school like us who wants to have some stability. Jacky, do you have any other thing to say, or I can answer questions too?
I think you did a pretty thorough overview. I know that just the comprehensiveness of the on-site visits, and if we, if there was something missing, sitting there trying to really find the information. So, and during that time, also just serving as consultants when we're going through some of these reviews. So just really, like Mr. Banks said, you can call and either get a referral to someone within the department or another school or somebody that they've worked with. The other thing was all the experience of the staff that work with us to do the reviews or that we can call on were previous superintendents or school leaders. So, that experience, like Mr. Banks said, one of the most recent things is just starting the high school and being able to call it was Doug Thomas, in terms of scheduling and credits and all of the kinds of things that we needed to look at with our organizational chart and those kinds of things. And if you could call anytime for assistance. And then Mr. Bang mentioned that they did provide funding for numerous things, not just professional development, but student needs. Evening in Paris, some like funding library books. And so that was always really helpful for us to know when we did budgeting. There was a certain amount of money that we could depend on from UCM as our sponsor to help cover. And they had a very specific list, but they were all things that we need and do for our professional development. So I think those are just a couple other things I wanted to put in there, and that data was extremely helpful on so many levels. Not data just for the board, but for some of the grants and some recruiting, staff recruiting. And there's some really excellent data that we have, and I know he worked very closely with Mr. Bang, but we also were able to use that for many other things.
And a couple questions. Am I correct in thinking that you all plan to continue to consult with Bruce to help with the data piece even after they're no longer our sponsor, or is that, do you all continue to work with him?
Yes, probably. That's what we're planning to do.
Yeah. And the other piece that I think is important for the board to know, I think when we entered into these discussions about future charter sponsorship, we thought we had to have a post-secondary institution because of the visa issue. But I know, Mr. Mbang, you have had conversations with immigration attorneys. And so your perception is we could have a partnership with a university that doesn't have to be a sponsorship. It's easier if it's a sponsorship, but there are other ways to partner with universities in order to get access to the visa issue. Is that still your impression?
Yes, I consulted with our immigration attorney about the choices we have ahead. And it's obvious that we don't have an institution of higher education for the exemption. As a sponsor, it would be good to have a relationship, partnership with a university, one way or another, that will help us benefit from the sponsorship, the exemption.
Which is good to know, because it means as we're evaluating these three potential sponsors, we don't have to say, if they can't provide visa support, we can't consider them. So all three are viable options.
Yeah, we need to make sure we will be able to secure that type of partnership.
Okay.
I sort of appreciate that overview of sort of the kinds of supports that UCM provided to the school, because I think as a board, we always saw the annual report, and it was a very thoughtful, very helpful annual report to sort of see what's going well and where there were red flags that we should be aware of. I don't think we oftentimes were aware of just all of the other support that UCM provided to you, far beyond just that annual report. So I appreciate
Well, also bear in mind that according to the KCPS presentation, they are able to provide the type of visa exemption. So I haven't asked our lawyer what it means or no, and how they were able to do it, but that's something that was stated during the presentation.
Right. Great.
So at this point, I think there are two things we need to do. So knowing that criteria of what we've been used to and what we've benefited from with UCM as our sponsor, that helps build some of the criteria. But I think if we kind of open the discussion about what we heard from the three as they presented, it can help us build any additional criteria that we want to consider as we do the evaluation. So if anybody wants to start it off with any comments, questions, observations from evaluating the three? Everybody shy?
And I mean, I'm happy to sort of share some initial perspectives from listening to the presentations. I mean, I thought there were two very distinct differences, particularly between the commission and St. Louis University. I think the commission, their priority is that very thoughtful audit. So they want to really shine a light on exactly how we're doing, and they do a very in-depth process of that audit so that we can see how are things going at the school. And then they largely, their goal is to be hands-off, to let us do what we do and to not intervene. They did say that they, you know, if we're struggling with an issue, they'll look for other schools maybe that are having the same kind of issue to convene with that. So their priority is definitely the audits, whereas St. Louis University, their priority was clearly the partnership side. I mean, I think they purposefully stay with a very small number of charter sponsors. Currently, they only have one. They keep it purposefully small so that they have the capacity to really partner and provide that level of support. And so there were, between those two, it was clear that what their priorities are. I really appreciated KCPS's presentation. I think Charnissa is fabulous. I think she is one person. I think it is hard for her to be able to provide the level of support that the other two provided. But I think she is an impressive individual. And so I think all three are strong options, but clear differences.
Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, I'll add to that on the, when you talk about the partnership, I thought it was really interesting with SLU, the opportunities that are, as our high school grows and our students are ready to matriculate, I think there are some really clear options that were outlined in that presentation and in just investigating SLU overall. Investigating is probably the wrong word, but you know, checking them out overall. And I think that's new, and that's something that we haven't, you know, when we look at UCM and what we had from them, we may have had that as it evolved, but we haven't had, you know, a high school where we've had graduating seniors yet. And looking at the opportunities there were really interesting in that presentation. Anyone else have any thoughts or questions?
I'm curious what stood out to people who were able to either attend or watch the recordings. What stood out to you from listening in on those presentations?
Yeah, I completely agree with what has already been said. I will say, you know, the number of schools that the different, you know, each individual institution's been involved with is different. Definitely the commission has the most experience, I would say, with a number of schools. But I agree with you. I kind of got a impression from SLU that it was really a long-term relationship. And as you all mentioned, kind of that view of going into even talking about students progressing through and potential opportunities.
Thank you.
I'll go next, since everybody's being shy. I did not attend the meeting, obviously, and I have not had a chance to watch the recording, but just so let me preface what I'm going to say with, so going in, I was kind of looking for somebody to just replicate what UCM did, and that was coming from the perspective of a board member who only really interacted with UCM at our annual audit review, and you know, touching base with them as needed when we had questions about things like that. I didn't realize the level of support that they provided with the school. And so that said, just from what I've read and from what I've heard briefly, it seems like the commission would provide just the annual audit oversight, kind of what we were looking for, but I don't know if they would provide all the other services that UCM was providing us. And then, but, you know, and SLU, it sounds like there's other things that I wasn't really thinking about that they would be able to provide, or the potential to provide. And so that's kind of intriguing, interesting. And so the only concern there is that they're on the other side of the state. But, you know, if we're one of two schools that they sponsor, I mean, there's definitely a more hands-on, more opportunity for hands-on. I don't know. It just seems like that's potentially a good opportunity there. And then, you know, KCPS, kind of like Beth said, you know, Charnissa is great. I have a great relationship with her. I've talked to her about it, her presentation and everything and what they're trying to do. But, you know, we know the history of KCPS, and if all it takes is a new superintendent to come and Charnissa is working somewhere else, and all of the support, goodwill that we've built I'm not saying this will happen, but it could happen, and it has happened. And so I don't know. I'm just a little skeptical, I guess. So anyway, that's my take on that, but not saying that it could not work, but just thinking on the long term, I don't know. I'm really intrigued by what SLU was talking about. I definitely intend to review the video though. That's my 2 cents.
Gwen Poss, I did review all of the videos. I was not able to attend that particular night. Kind of wish I had have known everything that UCM was providing us early on. I might have listened through a little bit different. I would have to tell you that SLU kind of stood out for me. I think I really like the post-secondary connection for Académie Lafayette, and the attention and relationship selling that I felt kind of permeated the 40 minutes there. I like how he talked about co-creating the performance goals, and that really talked about it's just not one point in time, really looking at growth. Talked about the connection to faculty, which I hear from Mr. Mbang and Jacky a little bit, that's what we had going with UCM. The connection to the Grow Your Own, I think, is another plus for future educators. And that might even be a bigger plus coming from that side of the state and integrating back over here into the Kansas City area. I think their mission aligns with, and he talked about their mission of social justice, and I think it aligns with where we're at, Académie Lafayette. The other thing that he mentioned 3 different names. So it sounds to me like if somebody would leave, there's some kind of a succession, or we would not just be dropped because the leader left. Because I happened in that conversation to note 3 names that would be highly aware and would be points of contact with this. I think the thing that I did not know that UCM provided would be the experience with staff, specifically, former superintendents, people that have worked in the DESE, that superintendents that have worked with DESE finance, et cetera. I know those can be huge things and helpful, and not that SLU can't do it, but I would hope that we would want to probe that a little bit, that maybe if that does rise to the top of importance, that we would want that to be a part of the future conversation before December. Just some random notes that I took there. So I hope that helped.
Really thoughtful and organized random notes.
And I know, I can't remember if it was in their presentation or in sort of the individual meeting we had with SLU. They did talk about hiring a new person on their team that sounded nearly certain, who used to be a superintendent, I believe. Do you remember, Mr. Mbang?
Yes, we did. When we met with them, they talk about hiring somebody, a former charter school leader, relocating from somewhere. I mean, a lady who's highly regarded to come and help in their charter school department, and they're opening to hiring some staff to make sure that they can help here. So they were here last week. They came to visit on Friday too. I met with two of them. It's the Dean of Education, Department of Education. And we had a conversation to visit the school and share with us what they think. They'll be open to discussion and providing for sponsorship.
Yes.
I would like to say also that there's another conversation so that the board know from School Smart KC to see how they can help us resolve the H-1B visa issues. I think we're meeting tomorrow, right?
Yes.
We'll be meeting tomorrow and see, regardless whether or not we have an institution or higher education as sponsor, to be able to resolve that. But I just want to let people know that that's also another conversation.
And I would say that meeting stemmed from our conversation with Robin at the commission, hearing about our concerns about the visa, and her reaching out to see who she could convene to support the visa issue. So I don't think Robin is in this meeting. She was just reaching out to see who would be good people to meet with to help us think about the struggles that we've had for many years, not just COVID related with visas.
That's great.
The other thing that I will share, I mean, one worry that I have is over the last 6 or 7 years, we consistently see more and more post-secondary universities backing out of charter sponsorship. So I think we have to recognize there is that worry. I think SLU currently says that they were fully committed, that they do not intend to back out, but I'm sure the other institutions 5 years ago wouldn't have said that they were planning to back out. So I think we have to recognize that there is that trend. So just something to be aware of.
Were any of the others that backed out, because I'm trying to think of, I can only think of 2 right now, were any of them private universities?
Good question. No, I think my knowledge was Penn Valley, UMKC, UCM. So I don't know of other private institutions other than SLU that are sponsors.
Yeah.
So, but a good point. It definitely makes a difference.
Yeah. Anybody else have additional input, thoughts from?
I guess I should probably go.
Right. I can't believe we haven't heard from you yet.
I put this on mute so I wouldn't talk.
Here's Harriet.
It's a very passionate issue with me. I guess the things I would like to say about SLU are, because they are a private institution and because they're a Jesuit, they have extremely deep pockets. They have resources. And when I say that, basically, my son went to SLU and he didn't graduate at the top of the class. And he came out of Bishop Miege with a 19 on his ACT, okay, which is not sterling. And they took him on probation. But because he came from the Kansas City and stuff, they gave him $15,000 in scholarship money. That's the deep pockets they have. Literally, and because he was on probation, they put him in a special program for kids coming from the city that didn't score very well on their ACT, and help them get their footing for their first year so that they'll be successful. Barnett went on to become get a major in economics, computer science, and a minor in mathematics from SLU. So obviously their deep pockets and their resources, they also have an outstanding IEP program. So if we needed help in IEP, they went the extra mile for Barnett and that type of resources. So when they talk about helping teachers or type thing, I really think they can carry stuff out like that. I am very, I think it would be extremely helpful for our high school. I think down the road, they could probably give us courses that our kids could take so that you could get college credit. And that is if we're building a high school and your kid can graduate with 15 hours of college credit, you're going to get a lot more parents deciding to stay with us. And that is an important thing that can be offered. So I think they have the deep pockets. I think they've been in it long enough. I'm impressed with the fact they closed a charter. That they finally said, you're not making it, you're not doing the right stuff, and they closed a charter down. So obviously I am more pro SLU. And I feel that the commission would probably do it would do what we needed, which was the audit. But I don't think they will be able to offer us all the benefits, even if they're different than CMSU would offer. I bet we get more benefit from SLU. That's all I'll say.
I'll go next. So I wasn't able to attend the meeting. So I did watch all the videos, and I spoke with Mr. Mbang earlier in the week at one of our committees. And I asked him, I said, look, I know the audit thing happens, but that's sort of like a statutory, you follow the regs, you check the boxes. All of the organizations are going to do that process. So I asked him, what else are we looking at? And what I got from his conversation was visas and assistance for training and teachers. And I think that St. Louis, however you say it, is provides both of those things. I personally would like to stay on top of the visa issue. It's a big issue for us, and we can't have any losses in where we are now. And got to have teachers here in the building, and the teachers are who do all the hard work. And these SLU also supports these teachers. So that was my perspective on the 3 videos.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else, any addition? Has Dana reviewed the 3 contracts, and are there any red flags or issues that we need to be aware of there?
Dana has not reviewed the 3 contracts.
Oh, Dana's here. Sorry, I didn't see you.
That's okay.
Okay. So I think that's one question we'll want to have answered before the vote as well.
Right. And from KCPS and SLU, I think they really stress the fact that they don't have a template, that they work with a school to figure out what are the needs, what are the goals, what is the contract based on that. The commission, I think, has just a very solid sort of standard that they use, whereas the other 2, my impression is, are far more just kind of flexible and created together, essentially. But we do need to make sure, there are clear things that a sponsor needs to do, so we would need to confirm that all of that is in the contract.
Yeah, and I think one of them, I can't remember which one, said they would honor whatever was in the UCM contract, but I can't remember.
That was KCPS.
Okay.
May I just, for the record, state that I have done work for the commission. I helped close 2 of their charter schools. And so I feel like I need to disclose that to the board. I don't think it's an issue, it's completely different dance. Closing a charter school for them and this, but I did want to disclose that I have done that.
Good to know. Thank you, Dana. And I do, I mean, to Michelle's earlier point, that is a really important role that sponsors play. They are there to hold schools accountable. And when things are not going well, they also have to take responsibility for closing schools. So.
All right, any other discussion or anything that is needed that anyone from the board needs to help prepare you for voting at our next meeting? All right. If you think of anything over the next week, just shoot an email, out to the board group, and that way we'll all have it on record so that if anybody's thinking the same thing, we've got it noted. All right, I think that is it from governance.
Okay. Thanks, Michelle. All right, finance.
Hello, everybody. I'll try and be brief since you had an extra long discussion. You can go to the next slide when you talk about accounts payable. The questions that I received from finance committee members and board there were quite a few CSP grant expenses, raffle winner, and all the expenses for the raffle, the fundraising expenses for PTO trash bag, and lots and lots of startup costs for September, and the additional furniture and picnic tables and lots of orders, books, Amazon orders that always happen September, October. They order them in September, the credit card comes in October. So those were the biggest variances. If anybody has any questions after they had a chance to look at them, let me know. Okay, just need a motion to approve accounts payable.
I move to approve October's accounts payable.
I second that. Gwen Poss.
Any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. Next slide. So I wanted to just go over some of the variances. And again, let me just say, as when we just have a couple of months of 1 month and 2 weeks of students in the building, it's really hard. And these variances are going to go up and down as we go forward. Last month, we talked about the forecast for DESI payments. And when I say DESI payments, I'm talking about all of the DESI payments, not just basic formula, but also including the Prop C and food services. So it's all of the state payments. Last month, we budgeted to be over in basic formula alone for about $209,000. It was a little bit over that. This month I made several adjustments, and what that did was bring it down to about a negative $12,000 for all of the payments. And here's why. Once we looked at September enrollment and attendance, and again, there are some open seats, but just for August and September, our enrollment was down, and our percentage of attendance was about 93 to 94% in some of the grades. So I made that adjustment, although I'm sure it will change. And once we get a really good look at the percentage of attendance, and some of it may be impacted by some quarantines and those kinds of things, we'll probably get that fixed. Summer school, if you remember, was under by 7 ADA, and we put in that carryover that we anticipated from 2021 due to the excellent attendance in March, April, and May. And so we're still projecting our revenue to be over budget of about $185,000, even with those major adjustments for basic formula. Any questions there? Okay, next. Then we're gonna go over expenses. Unfortunately, over about $228,000 in general for expenses. And we are again this year have way under salaries and benefits for the year. That changes because September was the very first for the new contract year. So it's hard, you know, July, August, September, or July and August were carryovers from the previous contracts without the 2.5% increase. What we did do on our projections is we added a line for contracted labor for substitutes, compliance, food service, some of the contract labor that we have to fill some vacancies. In summer school, we finally finished that analysis. Some people are still getting paid, but we included that. It was over budget for salaries, but we were way under in our transportation budget. And what that does, again, I just put my plug in for summer school. So we budgeted for teachers, and then we also at the very end, we also budgeted some additional staff so we could deal with the learning loss issues that were anticipated. And then our summer school didn't even reach budget. So people sign up, we staff, and then they don't always come. So we will look at that again for next year's budget. The biggest driver in all of this was the unbudgeted capital expenses paid out of operating. So when we gave you the budget, we didn't know about the E-rate. We hadn't finished all of that process, and we hadn't had the numbers there. We didn't budget for Oak Stairs. Some of those things that has to be done. So I think the biggest driver here is the unbudgeted capital expenses that get paid out of operating. And I think next month I'll have a little more clarity on that because some of them I think got put into that capital expense, some furniture and things that may not need to be there because each item was under a threshold. So I will keep you updated. And again, September, it's really hard to make a forecast with just 4 weeks of payment data. Next slide. This is a lot of information. So just so you can see how we get to the variances, I've got the year-to-date actual, which is just July, August, and September. And again, because we budget 1/12 per month, that always looks out of alignment. But if you look at some of the things that we forecast through June, as opposed to our total budget, this is the first line, that 11,247 is the changes in state revenue based upon decreasing students and decreasing from 95% to a little over 93%. That made a big impact. And then the carryover in the federal revenue is a big pickup, and we did get that money in October. And then the Federal CARES Act, we made some changes that I'll talk about in just a minute. So the total revenue with all of the different ins and outs comes out to a little over $184,000 to the good, over budget. Then if we go down to the expenses, some of the explanations were year to date, about 300,000 under salary, benefits, and contracted. We put that contracted in there. So even though we're under salary and benefits, we have contracted out some of those services. And over 57,000 average for summer school and transportation. Over in board and admin, and some of that has to do with our payment so far of the insurance premiums. So the biggest driver, as you can see on the far right on the variance, three lines up, is that 307,000 that we're paying that was not budgeted for capital. And there's rules on what you have to put in the capital expenses. So that's why that change is there. And some of them will be paid from a grant. So the whole bottom line is, you can see it was only a $43,000 difference from our budget. Okay, next one. This just summarizes the whole issues, our forecast, what our budget was, and the total variances. We talked about 184,000 to the good for revenue, and over expenses about 228 for the forecast. But if you come down to the bottom of the forecast and the budget and look at, our goal is to always have at least a break-even budget and not have to use reserves. And that's where we are still with all the changes that we've forecasted. So our budget said we would only be 26,971 to the good, and we're still, with just the changes that we put in for September, still at a break even, including all the capital expenses. Any questions? Okay. Next one. And in your packet, there were a couple of detailed explanations and that showed the budget to actual changes in the ADA enrollment and attendance, which was the biggest driver in this change. And again, the forecast changes summary involved a lot of ups and downs. So the decrease in enrollment and only 93% attendance was a big driver. A decrease in the average daily attendance for the current year, including those 7 summer school students, and a decrease in revenue for ESSER 3. The explanation here is that it's not a decrease in revenue. We're still getting the allocation, but what we were able to do is to reduce, we had put over $1 million in the budget, which is our allocation. We were able to reduce that to $700,000 into this fiscal year so that I have money to roll over into next fiscal year for that 22-23 budget, which I think we hope to continue to do. And again, if things change, if there's other additional expenses that we didn't anticipate, especially those capital expenses, we still have that $300,000 that we could use of ESSER 3 funds and not have to get into reserves. So I just wanted to say, one of the things we were trying to do is what can we do to keep this rollover for the next few years. And again, salaries and benefits are under budget. Unfilled positions, mainly Paris, we're still looking for, and then the interns. But also, if you remember, we negotiate our health benefits from January to December, so a calendar year. And so it was way under what we had budgeted for July through December. We're right in the middle of negotiations right now. So we'll see if that impacts the last half of our fiscal year and the first half of the calendar year. We increased that revenue for basic formula due to that carryover from our increased attendance from prior year. And I also adjusted that food service reimbursement. We've had a large jump in participation. And since everything is free, we have a large increase in participation. It's still not anywhere close to 50%, but way more than what we have had in the past. And then outside contractors, we added those expenses on, not contemplating we'd have to get somebody to help with data, compliance, food service. And then the biggest driver, as I said, is that capital expenses paid out of operating. And then we received the title and sped carryover, which was helpful. So in your summary, or in the detail that you have, with all of the ins and outs, that ADA we're down about 24 students enrollment and then the 7 summer school students. So it was a 31 total decrease times $8,500. So you can see that was the biggest issue that we had to deal with. So getting the additional revenue that we hope to see after the audit for the 2021 increase in ADA was almost wiped out from the two differences. So again, early attendance could increase. We fill all those positions and we'd be right back closer to where we budgeted. That's it. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Thanks, Jackie.
Sure.
All right, development. We have Celia. There we go.
Hello, everyone. Let's see. There we go. A few updates. With the help of our subcommittee from our development members, we are gathering potential corporate partnerships so that we can further find alternative grant opportunities, which is going to help us a little further, just trying to find some more specifics. Also, our 21 annual fund appeal is looking at being sent out here the first week of December. We're just kind of putting the last final touches to it. The 2021 annual report will be completed here. I know it's long awaited here in the next 30 days, and then it will also be sent out. We've developed a Musketeer supporting Musketeer directory, which we're going to be sending out a form here in the next 48 hours, allowing alumni-owned businesses and parents of current AL students to share their businesses with our AL families so we can support each other. It's going to be also on our website so they can download. And then it will also be, which will be our next, in the process of creating the quarterly magazine called the Bulletin de Mousquetaire, which I'm probably killing it in French, so I apologize, that will launch in January. And it will be our guide to everything AL, from arts, education, culture, sports, as well as advertising. So we'll be advertising full page, half page, quarter page. So this is going to be something that with our Musketeers supporting Musketeers, this is also going to be an opportunity for businesses that also can advertise here as well. So we're going to get our students, our journalism students involved. So this is going to be part of, you know, a big program for our students as well in our high school so they can get involved. As well as each campus will have an opportunity of different kind of little sections that they'll have. So it's going to be a smaller magazine in January, but as we grow and as we develop, every quarter we'll have a new one. So hopefully we'll have here 2 before the school ends. And we'll be sending out a layout to certain businesses as well as teachers and kind of our departments to add a little bit more emphasis on everything. So it's kind of exciting. It's something we've been working on now for a few months. So this will be a great thing for our school. Plus it's going to help with building our partnerships with hopefully more corporate partners. Then I have, this is our annual report kind of for our raffle. The next slide kind of tells us where we ended. So our total funds that we raised was $78,742. The funds that were raised by students was $76,116. The funds that were donated exclusively to AL was $1,680. And then the total students participated was 436, a little over a quarter of our students. And then the total days of fundraising was 42. The participation on the next slide shows us that Armor, we had 68 students participated, which was very low, but we're going to try and encourage next year high schoolers to get more involved. Cherry, the student participation was 162, and then 206 for Oak participation. Then for the last, I was able to pull the last 4 years just to kind of give you a little difference between all these is, yes, our students increased per year. The difference also is the day of the raffles, because like 2019 they had 56 days versus 2020 was 57. We're pretty much kind of at the same across the board. It just depended pretty much on the time, the duration of the raffle pretty much. But it did show success pretty much every year. This year was great just for the fact that we're coming off of a pandemic, and we had a little over a quarter. So majority of what I saw, it was a quarter of participation. So we need to get more school involvement and figure out a way to get more students and more families involved in our annual raffle. And that is it for me. Does anybody have any questions or anything to share?
No. Thanks, Celia. All right, Diversity Committee. Kelly.
Hello, everyone. The Diversity Committee report, district demographics, the committee reviewed the district demographics, compared them to strategic plan goals, and we're right on target for the racial and ethnic diversity. The progress for social, economic, and diversity is more challenging than I think we anticipated, but working towards it. District culture. It looks like some questions came in from some parents in regards to concern about 5th grade book that used racially inappropriate wording. The book has been used for the last 5 years. So our discussion was about really how the school should handle such issues. There are concerns about the books in the library that may have racist connotations. So Mr. Bang is looking into how we could do an audit of the library books with the possibility of bringing in an outside consultant. So I didn't know if Beth or Mr. Bang wanted to speak more on that, because I was not at that meeting to discuss that issue. So I'm not sure if you guys had anything else to add for that.
I mean, I would share a little more detail on the concern from our 5th grade parents. I think in the English class, they are reading a book in French that is a lovely story about a Black boy and a white boy in 1930s Louisiana. The issue is there are racial slurs used in that book, particularly the N-word is used, and the teacher read it aloud. And so a parent understandably expressed pretty grave concern that that was how it was handled, asked the diversity committee to discuss what is the policy that the Académie Lafayette has when there are racial slurs found in literature. A couple of things that the diversity committee recommended to the school was, one, we understand that it does show up in historical context, in literature. It should never be read aloud. That is not okay. So I think that is definitely how they will move forward. 2, when there is going to be sort of racial slurs in something that students are reading, parents need to be informed of that. That shouldn't come as a surprise to our parents. And teachers need to have a discussion with students about why those slurs are so harmful and why they will never be spoken. And yes, you might see it, but we will never speak that in the classroom. And teachers need to know how to have those conversations with their students. And so those were what we had talked about. That didn't happen at Cherry prior to reading this book. But I know Madam Royce is planning to convene parents to have that discussion with the parents. Ideally, that happens before a book is read, because you never want to be surprised by that as a parent. So there was understandably concern. Any thoughts from the board as to just sort of the recommendations, or Mr. Mbang, anything you would add?
Well, I just want to clarify. I think there is a misunderstanding there. It's not the N-word, in fact, because I gave them a whole lot of history of African writers in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and African American collaboration on the movement of Black movement. The word that is used in French, the French word, is the same as Negro. Okay, and it is still being used in the Francophone world in the historical context. There's so many writers who wrote and used the exact same word. Let's take one. I talk about one of the most prominent Black intellectuals in the 50s, 60s in the world, Cheikh Diop, who is known, who wrote a lot about Egypt, African Egypt, and so many things. That's the exact same word that all those authors have used, issues like Negro. But the most important thing is what the student understood and what was written in French is different from the N-word at all. So, and I have somebody, in fact, a Senegalese, who published his latest book, which is interesting because generally it's used in historical context, especially a movement that is, you can read about negritude movement with Aimé Césaire, Guadeloupeans, Senghor, Senegalese, and all the African intellectual at the time to reaffirm the values of African culture and civilization. So the problem was understanding of a French word and how it was understood. But at the end of the day, I think that explaining the context to kids, and at the end of the day, what's most important is what the kids heard. Because when they heard the word, that's what they understood and went home with. I think that's something that, of course, we need to be aware of and see how to handle a situation like that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mbang and Beth, for elaborating more on that.
What's the title of the book?
It is Le Roi du Jazz, I think.
You'll have to put that in the chat.
Yeah.
I think all your those kids, everybody the last 5 years have read that. Le Roi du Jazz. Roi is, let me put it, is king of jazz. Okay, I'll put it there, and because the problem is whenever I touch this thing, it's gonna move.
After the meeting, you can let us know. But I mean, I think the term, even in French, was used as a slur, as I understand it, as a racial slur. That's how it was intended in the context. And it sounds very much like the English version of the N-word. So it is a very sensitive topic that parents should have known ahead of time. And the teacher should have sort of known just how to address it in the classroom and why not to speak it. Because I know in Oak, they don't, they have that conversation and they talk about, we're not going to use that term and here's why.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is just making sure everybody knows, explaining it, or the teachers know to explain it in that context. And
yeah, correct.
And then, it still goes back, to training. Again, it goes back to, training. So something that we will continue to work on as the diversity committee to ensure, things, as we continue to learn, that those kind of things, don't happen as we move forward. So I can appreciate that.
The reason why I make that decision, I don't want people hearing here think that a teacher was reading aloud an N-word, because that's what people will come from. Or I mean, we can go back and say what kind of books we're going to look at, historical books. How do we use those kind of situations? It is a complex one, and I agree that we need to make sure that what kids come out from a classroom is really is not harmful.
And I will say, I mean, the teacher is very thoughtful in having conversations with students, and so there was nothing to say the teacher was trying to be offensive. So I think the parents definitely recognize she has been a wonderful teacher and has been very thoughtful, just wanted to rethink how this issue was addressed.
And with today's times, it's just a touchy subject, so, which can be, it's understandable. So I do want to say that our next diversity committee meeting is November the 17th. We plan to have our parents series. Lisa Benson will be our facilitator for that. So we're excited about that coming on, looks like not this week, but the week after that. And so we will have our DEI parent series. So looking forward to that. And then we'll also, in our next committee meeting, I believe will be December, we'll continue to discuss upcoming events where Robin may need help in some volunteering, things like that. So, and additional needs for national. So we'll get into those things once we get past our parent series, which we're all excited about, and look forward to having. So if you guys can jump on November 17th and listen to that parent series, it should be, I'm looking forward to it. So.
What time is it on the 17th?
We'll be having our parents DEI series, and so
What time?
It starts at 6.
6, okay.
It'll be 6 to 7. Yes, ma'am.
Can you send an email with all that information to the board group?
Absolutely.
So that we all have that.
Sure. Okay.
I have one, before we move on, I have one more question. So I would like to go to the next, I don't want to bring it up or have the discussion here, but we can later. But I was approached, or Doug Thaman gave me a call that he had heard from someone else who then talked to our state representative that Académie Lafayette's having some issues with African-American children leaving the school. And so, he called me right away to, see if that was true and what the concern was. And so I kind of told him where I think it was coming from. And so I think that's something that I've already talked to Mr. Mbang about it a little bit previously. And so I think that's something we can discuss or put on the agenda to discuss at the next diversity committee meeting, because, while there is a little bit of truth to some of that, we all know that rumors and things like that can spread like wildfire, and the perception can become reality pretty quickly. So we need to make sure that we're out ahead of this and addressing it as best we can. Like I said, I've already talked to Mr. Mbang about the issues. It's mostly at the middle school level, by the way. And I think I told Doug Thaman that I think the issue is just lack of resources. You know, we just don't have enough staff, social workers, things like that, counselors, which, you know, that's a budgetary thing, but hopefully we can address that going forward. But at any rate, we can talk more in depth about that at the next diversity meeting. So like I said, I'd like to attend if possible. So just shoot me also the information for the next meeting. I'll try to make it.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Kind of cool. So I just want to start by sharing this amazing performance in athletics. This fall season, all our teams won the championship of their discipline. We have the volleyball champions for the conference and the metro. The girls took the championship, soccer championship too. We beat Lincoln 2-0 for the final, and our boys are the metro champions. Cross country metro also for boys and girl boss, and state championship champions for the girls. So I think it's a lot to celebrate. It again means that we're not just being an academic school. We try to have a round education for the kids, as Greek said, or Latin, mensano in corpore sano is un corps sain dans un esprit sain dans un corps sain, meaning a sound spirit in a sound body. So that's what we're trying to do, making sure that the kids are doing well. And I want to thank the coaches and all those parents who have volunteered to do it. It was mainly run by parents and or teachers. So it shows what kind of community we are. Whatever we're doing, we can't do it alone. We are very lucky and proud that our parents and our community is very involved in whatever we're doing. Again, I want to thank each and everybody, congratulate the kids, and again, thank the coaches and parents who have been extremely helpful.
That is amazing. That is just so great.
It's amazing. COVID-19 report, you can see the data for the last 3 weeks of the school. There's an uptick in the data of especially quarantining kids. You have 114, you have 5 cases here and 114 quarantine on the week of 23rd to 29th of October. And this is also no quarantine required because of vaccination. Kids who are fully vaccinated, no quarantine is required. So you see here that we have a total not who were vaccinated and not quarantined on the week of 16th and to the 22nd, and so on. So again, that's something that is not required a quarantine if you're fully vaccinated. Now, the reason of this case last week resulted in 114 quarantine due to a large lack of social distancing in an assigned court in Upper Room. Upper Room is our after-school program. We contracted with Upper Room, and the lack of assigned seats with buses, three kids per seats in the cherry buses. So it is, of course, not ideal because we don't have enough buses, unfortunately. Those are the main reason why we have this number of quarantine of 114 for last week. So at this point, as you know, we're doing the testing, COVID testing every week, and we have around 33% participation with a consent to participate every week, and we have 28 staff opting to do the testing every week too. Any question before we move forward? So you can just ask any question as I move forward. The data. As you know, with the school performance committee, we have approved, the board has approved a yearly calendar of data to be presented. This week, this year, this month, we need to present the student attrition and the attendance one. We were not able to present the MAP data. We will do it in December because the state test results have not been published by district, because every time we do a MAP test result presentation, we try to compare ourselves with surrounding urban district, suburban district, and give the board some perspective. Even though this year we will have a lot of different categories to compare ourselves with, because we need to compare ourselves with those who are in person, which was a higher percentage in the state, and then those who were hybrid, for those who are online, and so on. Now, for this two data attrition, I worked with the school performance committee, and they wanted to see also the number of kids we lost per grade level. I mean, second grade is first grade to second grade, or if your first grade here, it means from kindergarten, those kids leaving kindergarten to come to first grade. So you can see still high number in second grade and third grade. And of course, you can see that ninth grade is, we are only retaining 65% or 68% of our eighth grade going to ninth grade. So that's why you have 53 there who did not move to our high school. And in 10th grade, 9th to 10th grade, we lost one student and we gained another one. So it's the same number in 10th grade. I would say that the 8th grade, 7th to 8th grade is lower than the previous years. Last school year, I think the previous year school year, we lost, I think, 12 or around that, 13 from 7th to 8th grade. This year is 7, which is lower. So the attrition rate for the K8 is 9.4, is higher, of course, than usual. And the high, the committee wanted to see a comparison, so I was able to go and dig out the data prepared by Peggy in the previous years to give the board a way to compare where we're doing. So as you can see, the 2 years of pandemics has been extremely high. We lost students, especially during the school year and from first grade to second grade and third grade. So yes.
I just wanted to point out, you're also including in your numbers your 9th grade, and we haven't, that kind of skews our numbers, because we didn't have a 9th grade till 2 years ago. And
no,
so
no, Harry, I'm not including it. I'm just doing K8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just K8 is the thing that last year, of course, the loss in K2 was very high, of course. So what needs to be done is, we talk about it at our committee, see how do we better educate our K2 parents to understand what's going on in French immersion. But another thing though, also you can see is we have a lot of more, I see it here, more white living, and most of the time is either homeschooling or private schools. We have a lot of middle class who moved to private schools or to homeschooling. That's what you can see here. On the left side is the enrollment demographic last year, and on the right side is the demographic of host students who left during the pandemic. And I think that it's going to be it's a national trend anyway. So what we can see is how we can, again, we talked about creating a new parents academy where we can inform them better and how it's working. It's normal that parents from kindergarten to, from first grade to second grade, some of them were kind of worried about reading, and seriously, we see online it was not, of course, the best service we could have given to our students. Online was not the best one. But what we're seeing now is teachers that they're working hard to make sure those kids are filling in those learning gaps.
And I do think, John, I think these sort of graphs here get to the misperception that we're losing more students of color. I think I don't like the 9% attrition, right? I don't want that to be as high as it is, but I do think there's a perception we're losing more students of color are the ones that are opting out, and it's equal with the number of students that we have at this school. So it's helpful to see the breakdown of data.
And another of the attrition, if you look at the reasons, is many of the people moved out of district or changed states. We have seen a lot of people who moved, rarely going to another charter school. It's mainly going to a private schools who are opening full-time or moving out of state or out of district.
And I think one of the things that's hard to know from the data, we saw big spikes the last 2 years, which may just be COVID. It could be something more. It's hard to say what the COVID impact, because I do think it had a huge impact when we could not be in person and private schools could. And so parents opted to take their kids somewhere they could be in person.
Yeah, it's pretty sure that most of it is, I mean, a lot of those things is related to COVID. Now we should, again, as I said, make sure that the K-2 parents understand how immersion functions. And sometimes also another question I'm asking myself, because remember we went from 120 kids to 210. When you're having 120, getting in was extremely hard, of course. So people will tend, to take it very seriously, as opposed to when you have 210. So those are things, the question we need to look at and see in terms of educating our parents about the choice. But we need to look at all aspects of the attrition, but I'm pretty sure that mainly with COVID and online played a huge role in some of the parents moving in or out. Now, for the attendance, also I was able, at the request of the committee, the school performance committee, to find, disaggregate the data. So attendance here by building. On the right side is AL district, and you can see by building Oak, Cherry, and Armour attendance for this quarter, and how is disaggregated by learning learning challenges. We have IP and ELL students compared to the district. For attendance, there's not a huge gap here. And I brought also the attendance by race and ethnicity for our different categories. The district again is 93.18, and you can see each category for the first quarter attendance. So I'm working with the IT department to make sure that this kind of report is, this is what we're expecting to have to make sure that we have it.
How does this compare to like pre-COVID attendance rates?
I've not been, I've not done that. Remember that. I'm sure that Jacky will say it used to be higher than this. The beginning of the school year has always been higher than this. And then as we move forward, as the school year moved forward, it became lower. I would like to hear Jacky.
So typically when school starts back in session, August, September, October, our attendance rate has been 97, 98%, and then it goes down in winter months, and the average that we've had year after year is a little over 95%. So this is much lower. When you take the way I did it also, when I was just trying to figure out what our average daily attendance was, I did it by campus. So the problem is, this slide shows it by race and ethnicity, which is great, but when you do it by campus, the lower attendance rate was at Oak and Cherry, which has the most students. So that impact on that ADA and the budget that I was projections was significant because it's 900 students that are at 93% attendance. I will say that we're still working on it, and there could be we had to make attendance codes, not exactly like during our COVID experience last year and the last few months of the prior year, but the quarantine and process may impact this a little bit also. So I'm hoping it goes back up to pre-COVID levels, which is a little over 95%.
Yeah, that's what I was assuming, was that maybe some of the quarantines made this happen, and even so, we've had a relatively low number of quarantine cases in our school. So it's interesting.
So for the academic program, all our foreign teachers have arrived and are in the classroom. Support for new teachers is being provided by mentors and Teach for America. We contracted with Teach for America a couple of years ago. They're doing a fantastic job in coaching and onboarding our new teachers. In fact, I would say all our K-8 teachers, but we still have one more teacher arriving from Mali. They got their visa. Is a physics and chemistry teacher with an IB training. She was a great recruit coming for our high school. And would be working with middle school science and planning for developing the high school chemistry curriculum too for next year. So we were lucky to get him an expedited visa, because I had to write a letter to the embassy, and the embassy was very responsive, understanding the problem of teacher shortage. So they were able to expedite his visa, and he is arriving on the 17th. The building's completion of the first common assessment, grade K-10. We have 2 common assessment for second grade up, for third grade up, and 3 for first and to second grades, kindergarten to second grade. So common assessment is at the end of the quarter, we have a common assessment to make sure that kids are where they need to be. It's an in-house test developed by our teachers. Fall parties were October 29th at Oak and Cherry, and football dances were October 29th and 30th at Arbor. So a lot of fun for the kids. So we're still working on the recruitment of substitute teachers. That's a problem nationwide, as you know, and we're really thinking probably we need to change the rate we're paying, because we're paying $130, and I see that more and more school districts are paying now $150 a day. So it might be helpful also. We need to think about that for the rate. And as you know, recruiting French speaking substitute has been extremely challenging. Okay, we have a group of principals working with EdFull on our talent recruitment and hiring of new teachers. EdFull is compensated by School Smart Casey mainly, and they're working with charter schools in Kansas City to help train and develop our talent recruitment process. Almost a weekly meeting, and Heather and Jean-Claude are mainly participating for our school. 8th grade students are having shadow days now. I mean, we welcome them at the high school to be able to have more information about our high school. We'll plan to have a discussion, also presentation to the whole group, because I think high school, middle school students may not really understand how high school function. So they need to know more about these credits and the importance of working on all subjects. So there'll be an open house also in a couple of weeks for high school. Another thing is, it's not in the report, anyway, is we're planning to have a meeting with 10th grade parents for the foreign trips in a couple of weeks. We're thinking of trips either to China and a Spanish-speaking country and an African country for our 11th grade. It's going to be an 11th grade trip, foreign trips that we put on our program. So we are still working on that.
And how's planning going for the 7th grade France trip? Is that sort of back on track?
It's being coordinated by Madam Hufaidi so far, and it's moving forward. So if there's any change, we'll let people know, but it's still moving forward. Now, teacher recognition. We have every board meeting, we try to recognize teachers who have gone above and beyond. Our teachers are working really hard, but we think that Trish Singhorn at Cherry, the librarian at Cherry, did a great job organizing the book fair and also putting together a volleyball match between the 3 campuses. We're trying to have fun too for our staff. We had a good soccer tournament at Armour between teachers and students. It was really good, and we'll have another one. So we're developing self-care activities based on people's interests. Recognition for Oak team, we have the 1st grade team, and there's a transformative leadership of their team leader, Mrs. Catherine Sattler, is the 1st grade team leader. They have always been focusing on grade level teaching and learning and making sure that best practices are being used by our teachers. So the Oak leadership team wanted to recognize the great job this grade level team is doing. And last but not least, our very dear Aaron Safak, who is our 6th grade math teacher, an amazing math teacher, for his ongoing commitment to excellence in instruction, his infectious enthusiasm and love for teaching and learning math, and his openness to improving his instructional practices. I know that for the last few years, I've always seen Mr. Safak putting a 10% growth from kids coming from 5th grade to 6th grade. If you see, he's a very highly effective teacher and always open to changes and new ideas. I think he's an excellent teacher. Any question about my report before we move to the board president, or about anything about the school?
Loves that recognition.
I answered to all a head question at the commission, which is good for me. at the committee level. Good. Okay, thank you.
So for my part, just thank you to Mr. Mbang, his team, all of our teachers. I shared with some others that I met with that I've worked in supportive education for 20 years, and I've never seen our educators and administrators in K-12 education as exhausted and overwhelmed as they are this year. It's far worse than last year even. So recognizing that this continues to be a really difficult time for educators. And so I've been talking with him. We've talked for years as a board about needing to make sure to hire the additional administrative staff that we need so that they can effectively support our teachers. And we have not been able to do that so far. I think as a board, that has to be a priority this year, to hire a director of operations, a director of human resources, so that they have the staff they need to effectively do everything else. Because our teachers, our staff at the school, we just ask them to do too much, I would say. So I think that has to be a high priority to get them the help and support that everybody needs. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Mbang?
Well, I'm sure John will say, I've been working on that, and I want to thank him also for his support of hiring additional admin staff like the HR director. I know for years we have put the priority on investing in the classroom and making sure our different school buildings have what they need. Every school, and also the teachers, we may be the only district giving that much money to every teacher as their budget. But you're absolutely right. We are at a point where we have reached our limit of how do you say it, efficiency. So we have kept our in central office the same number for the last 10 years, even though I would say a little bit less even, but I would say the same number as when we had 770 students. Now we have 500 students more and the same central office. I used to have a personal admin staff, admin assistant that I found here. So the principal used to have one. I don't have one. And I know Jacky is and Carlos, they're all extremely tired. I mean, Carlos is doing what? Visas, transportation, food service, buildings, and all those kind of things. And Jacky, even dealing with so many things. I think you're absolutely right. It's important that we deal with that. It's has always been a problem of prioritizing instruction as opposed to central office.
But I do think you're at a place, instruction will start to suffer because you're not able to provide the support you need to teachers because of everything else that everybody has.
You're right. That's we were preaching to the choir.
Right. So we will continue to think about how to make that happen. A couple of small MCPSA updates. I did go to a meeting with Doug Thaman. He did an updated presentation on Fix the Glitch, what causes that issue, where we are with that issue. I know it's been a couple years since our board has had a presentation from Chad about the issue. So I might look to see if he can come do just a 15-minute overview about where we are with that issue. They are also working with Coquithia Hill to try to sort of drum up more interest in board members for charter schools. So they have a big initiative that they're going to be launching in connection with the Chiefs, which I don't quite understand the Chiefs, but just to get awareness and publicity about the need to join charter board. So we'll be following up with her to see how we can be a part of that initiative. But I think that is all I have for my pieces. Any other final questions, thoughts? All right, wonderful. I appreciate everybody sticking with us. We had lots of discussion topics for tonight, so appreciate everybody's time, and we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Have a fabulous night, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. See you, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.